I'm really pleased to welcome you as my third speaker on the Blogcasts and look forward to hearing your story of your journey with ET and now heading up our fundraising team. And perhaps we could just start by looking at how you came to find out that you had an MPN.
Certainly. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, firstly, Nona. I first found out about my diagnosis, strangely enough, after I had a cough and chest pain. That was back in 2017 when I went to the GP. But prior to that, I had been experiencing an awful lot of tingling, pins and needles and numbness in my fingers and my toes. So at the appointment with the GP, I explained this and they organised some blood tests. They had said to me, it sounds like it might be something called Raynaud's, but we'll do these bloods. I never heard anything back further after that was done. 2 years later, I had a very similar experience. I had a cough with a bad chest, and I had still had all of this tingling and numbness going on in the background. Even at night, I would wake up with a dead arm and have to sort of massage it and bring it back to life. So I discussed this at the second appointment. And the doctor looked back over my notes and said to me, oh, back in 2017, when you had your blood test, your platelets were raised. So I think we're going to redo those bloods and see what they're doing at this moment in time. She was very calm and she said, you know, it may well just be that you are a person that has slightly high platelets, but let's have a look. Two days later, after I'd had the bloods, I had a phone call to say, no, they have raised again quite significantly, and we'd like you to see a hematologist. So I booked a hematologist appointment with their help, and that's how the journey started.
My goodness, gosh, that's a long wait with the not knowing about what the symptoms actually were about. So tell me, Debbie, what was your appointment with the hematologist like? And what was it like to be told that you had a rare blood cancer?
Okay, so the hematologist was really thorough, very thorough indeed. He wanted to know whether I'd had any recent infection, whether I'd had any recent surgeries, because this can apparently cause the platelets to go up. He also wanted to know about family history. And I told him that as far as bloods were concerned, that my paternal grandmother had something called polycythemia vera, and he said he knew about that. And interestingly, my mother, so completely different side to the family, had a lymphoma. He told me that he was going to do some more bloods that day, which he did. He then said that he was going to send a panel away that would take a few weeks to come back, and he would review me again in his surgery then. He told me it was nothing to worry about. He told me that everything would be sorted for me and that they would find out what was causing this. He did say if the panel came back with no evidence of any problem, that he would look at going down the bone marrow biopsy route. So an appointment was made for 4 weeks later, and I went to that appointment to be told that they had found the JAK2 mutation and that I had a myeloproliferative neoplasm. So, you know, I still struggle to get that out. And I asked him at that moment in time, well, how do you spell that? So, and I started to write it down. And what he did at that moment in time was he got out for me a leaflet, a brochure, and it was the MPN brochure. And I still have that to this day. He wrote in the front cover that I had the JAK2 mutation. And it became my Bible. But it did save me having to write down lots and lots at the time. Now, Nona, this was actually very interesting because, as you know, on the front cover of that, it says polycythemia vera, it says MPN, and it says ET. So he had told me it was ET, but this was the first time that I had ever had a connection between PV and ET, and the fact that they were both MPNs. So my initial reaction, of course, was, well, have I inherited this?
And sorry, Debbie.
No, you carry on.
It's really interesting, everything you've said, because also I think it's really the two bits I pick up are that your paternal grandmother had PV. And, here's hoping that the epidemiology study, the Mosaic study, might enlighten us on this. Because, when we talk about it, there's no real clinical evidence of it, but you're another patient who seems to have, by coincidence or whatever, got a family member who's also got PV. And I think that's why it's so important, the research projects that are going on for MPN patients. The other thing that's really important as well, I think, is, when I was diagnosed 30 years ago, it was a blood disorder. And it was the World Health Organization who changed it to being a neoplasm. But the minus is the word neoplasm. The plus is that we get access to many more drugs. And that's a huge bonus.
Absolutely. And I had never associated my grandmother's PV with a cancer, if I'm very honest. I knew that she took a tablet that was a chemotherapy tablet, but I hadn't associated it as a cancer. And for people out there, she actually went on to live till she was 92. So that also has been an inspiration to me as well.
That is amazing, isn't it? 92 years old. I mean, yes. It's science is ever evolving with MPNs, but let's not take away from the fact there are some very disabling symptoms sometimes.
Oh, look, I totally, and I saw that as well. And so it is something that I am very, very aware of.
Would you be able to talk a little bit about your own symptom burden? I mean, are you working, or how has having this diagnosis impacted on your life, Debbie?
Okay, so the tingling and the numbness was something that was that does bother me, and it still does bother me from time to time. I also had overwhelming fatigue. There were times where I really struggled to hold myself upright, and other times that I would wake up in the morning and think I haven't possibly had a night's sleep. I'm more tired today than I was when I went to bed. So there are things like that I've had to, work on managing, and exercising my way through. Gentle walking has actually helped with the fatigue. I now have a dog, and he's been an absolute godsend in helping me to get out and have gentle walks, which again have been very therapeutic and useful for me in managing the symptom burden. The other thing for me as well is that I have had, I guess it's referred to as a brain fog. and adjusting to not always being fluent and taking a little bit longer to think through what I want to say or remember a name has sometimes been a struggle for me. I do work full time, and I have a very, very supportive workforce. And so I changed some of my hours so that I started later in the day, because I found I had I was a little bit more sluggish in the morning. And the other thing that I do, if I'm in a meeting, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's round a table, I make sure that I actually do write down some bullet points. So I always write down, if I'm round a table, who is round the table, so that I don't forget the person's name. Zoom is brilliant because it has name tags, but little bits and pieces like that are the things that I do. I work from home now more often than not. That was mainly as a result of COVID, but it has really, really helped with managing my MPN.
That's amazing, Debbie. And I'd just like you to give us a few top tips for managing telling people, or was there any difficulty for your family to come to terms with this? Have you got any tips for?
So I am quite a private person. So when I was first diagnosed, I didn't tell lots and lots of people. I did obviously tell my family, and they were naturally very worried. And they were also extremely supportive. And they continue to be, and they're with me every step of the journey. I think probably that the biggest tip that I can give to people is do what feels right for you. That's the most important thing. I remember, Nona, when I was first diagnosed and I understood what was a little bit about the disease and the fact that this was going to be something that was lifelong, I found it really quite scary and quite overwhelming. And it was something that I found I took with me for the majority of the time. And I think that's a very, very normal feeling when you first get diagnosed. In the fullness of time, you will learn to live in a new normal. And in those very early days, somebody gave me some advice, and that was try to learn to put your ET into a box. It will pop out uninvited from time to time, but you will be able to put it back in again. And, you know, I think that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. And at the time I thought, well, I can't possibly do it. But life does move on, and I have got to that place, and my life now is pretty much as normal as I can make it.
That sounds amazing, Debbie. And now you've joined us on the MPN management committee, and also heading our fundraising thing. How has that been for you? Because that is quite a full-time activity, because MPN Voice, as we know, needs as much help as it can get.
Look, I couldn't be more grateful to MPN Voice for everything they did for me. I attended through the COVID lockdown a number of the MPN Voice online forums, and I learned more about my MPN on those occasions than I had at any other time. I felt so supported to be online in a room, you know, with people with a similar thing, and to think, I do understand exactly what they're saying. So I would absolutely say to people, do the same thing. I can't wait to go to some of the face-to-face forums. As a result of this support that I really am incredibly grateful for, I did reach out to MPN Voice, to Maz, and say, what can I do to help? And for me, it's been a privilege to be involved on the fundraising side. And I would say to anybody that would like to do something to try and help is give us a call. I'll happily speak to you or email you. I think people are frightened that fundraising involves running marathons. I couldn't run a marathon if you paid me £1 million, but there are other things that you can do, and we can help support you with any kind of idea. And you can use your own talents. People have done concerts, people have done craft fairs, people have made cakes, they've done coffee mornings, as well as activities like sponsored events, walking, running, swimming, etc. There is something that everybody can do, and I would welcome to speak to anybody that would like to help us on the team or to do an activity. It would be my greatest pleasure.
That sounds absolutely brilliant, Debbie. How do they contact you?
So they can go originally through info@MPM Voice, and it will be forwarded to me in the fundraising team, and I will then reach out by email, and I can make phone calls, I can text, I can continue the email route. I do all of those things. I've met virtually and online through email with lots and lots of different people, and it's become, I feel like I've got another group of friends. There are some lovely people, and we're so grateful for everything that everybody does. The passion is incredible.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Debbie, and I cannot thank you enough for this talk. I mean, we are part of an MPN community that started very small and now is a global community. And it's thanks to people like yourself and all that you're putting into it now that we're able to move forward. And I couldn't thank you enough for doing this conversation with me, Debbie.
No, you're very, very welcome. And it's a pleasure. It is a real pleasure. And I look forward to everything that MPM Voice continues to do.